Go ahead.
I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes. I thought we were past that.
Oh no.
Karen. My name's Karen. I work at Good Earth. I teach a lot of the workshops there. So maybe I've seen you at workshops at Good Earth. I'm actually not working in the shop these days. My son and his wife and our 10-month-old grandson moved in with us because of the virus. And so we are full-time nannies, my husband and I right now, and they're working from the dining room table. So I get to do the workshops virtually, and I'm delighted to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. This is the Kokedama workshop, and it's a lot of fun. It's a concept that's derived from bonsai. When the bonsai plants are removed, when their roots they're removed from the pot for repotting, sometimes if they're left too long, moss will grow around the root ball, and it creates something that's quite beautiful. And this is kind of a fun way of getting your fingers into the concept of bonsai without investing a lot or taking a lot of classes. But I have some examples here that I wanted to show you. I'll put them up close to the speaker view. I'm going to go to speaker view. Okay, can you see me? Can you see this?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Are you all on speaker view so you can see the
Oh, speaker view, what's that?
So whoever's speaking is the big picture, and that way if I'm speaking you'll get to see a big image of me.
Okay. Where's
so there's
button?
It's up at the top right hand if you're on your computer. Rachel, you're on mute.
It will say gallery view or speaker view.
And here's another sample.
Oh, there you go.
And here is a third one.
Pretty.
And these all are wrapped in twine, so you can even hang them like this, as if they were floating moss balls with plants growing out of them.
Ooh.
So we're going to make 3 kokedama today. And I'm going to move these out of the way, and we're going to go through what you received in your kit. I don't know if Kelly included a worksheet, a handout in the kit. If not, we'll be able to send that to you. But this just goes through the the steps of what we're going to be going through today. You should have a bag of potting soil, like this, and 2 packages of moss. This is preserved sheet moss. It's not live moss. A little bit of extra, a sphagnum moss, Spanish moss. 3 plants. Oh, actually, I think you received 4, and I believe one of them is an African violet. We're going to be making 3. We stuck 1 extra plant in there so that you could choose which plants you wanted to use. And then twine and fishing line. So these are the items that were in your kit. The items that you were asked to have ready for working are an area that can get dirty, a container for the soil, and I'm using just a dish pan. Another container, I'm using a bucket for the moss. A pair of scissors, and then some plastic gloves or latex gloves. So let's just take a minute and make sure that you have all the components of your kit ready and you're ready to get dirty. Is anybody not ready? Does anybody need a minute or two? Okay, well, let's get started then. If there are any pie makers, some of this will come naturally to you, more easily to you. The first thing we're going to do is take the moss out of the packages. It opens at the bottom, so that's a little bit confusing. And we're going to put the moss sheets. You'll probably get 1, 2 sheets. They're dried, and we're going to put them into the bucket and fill that bucket with water, or one of the containers. And just let the moss soak for a while we do the rest of our work. So everybody take the moss out of the package, put it into the bucket, add water if there's not already water in there, and submerge it. Make sure that it's soaking up the water.
I've lost the picture. So which moss are we putting in the water?
Both of them.
Oh, both of them. Okay.
We also
Karen.
got Spanish moss. Do we put the Spanish moss in the water?
No,
or
just
green?
the packages of moss. The 2 plastic packages of moss. The
The
Spanish
green
moss
moss.
you'll just keep separate.
That's the only one I got.
Yeah.
I don't get any other one.
That's fine.
I
This is
got
the
one
one we're
bag
using.
and one sheet, not in a bag. So, but it looks like a lot.
Okay. If it's green on one side, probably brown on the other, put that in the bucket to soak.
Yep.
The Spanish moss is just for decorative purposes. We're not going to be soaking that. Okay. So our moss is absorbing water. And now we're going to get started with the soil. The bag of soil, you don't need to use all of it. Actually, you may want to keep a little bit of it out and just add that, almost all of it, but keep some separate in case it gets too wet. In case you put too much water, you can actually add more soil to change the texture of the soil. But you'll dump most of it in and keep some of it out. While it's dry, and this soil is relatively dry, you can go through, if there are big clumps, you can either toss those out or break them up with your hands. And it's probably a good time to put on your plastic gloves. If there are any big pieces of twigs or a little bit of root that needs to come out, it should all be pretty much uniform. Maybe a piece of mulch or bark. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add water to this to come up with the consistency that we need so that it will hold, the soil will hold together in a ball shape, but it won't be sopping wet, but it won't be so dry that it crumbles apart. So that's where it's kind of like making a pie crust. You want it to be a certain texture. If you add too much water, you're going to have a chewy pie crust. If you add not enough, it's going to fall apart. So that's where the pie crust comes in. And I like to use my fingers and just break this up, mix the water in the soil, spread that water all through, distribute it evenly. And if you find any sticks or twigs, just toss them out. I'm outside, so I'm tossing them on the ground.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna show you how we test this for moisture. If you can see here on the screen, I make it like a snowball, right? And I squeeze it gently and it falls apart. That means there's not enough water in it and I need to add more. So I'm gonna just throw some more water in there and use my fingers and toss it again. And I'm gonna keep doing this until I get to the point where I can make a snowball-sized ball of potting soil. And I can create a round ball like this that I can handle and it's not gonna fall apart. I can even toss it in the air and catch it and it doesn't crumble. That's how you know
Flat.
you've got the right amount of soil and water ratio. Can everybody see that? If you squeeze it, you can actually hear a little bit of water squishing in it, but the water is not running out. And that's how you make the root ball for a kokedama. Once you get the right consistency of the soil, let's go ahead and make all 3 balls. And you want to make them about the size of, well, I would say a small grapefruit or a large orange. How about that? You might need to add a little bit more and you just keep squishing, 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 squishing until you get to the point where you can toss it and it won't fall apart. When you squeeze it, water does not pour out. That's how you know you've got the right consistency. So that's why I suggest you leave a little bit of potting soil on the side. So if you pour in too much water and it's squeezing water and it's just pouring out, then you can add a little bit more potting soil until you get the right consistency. Does anybody have any questions? All right, go ahead and make 3 of these soil balls. I am going to run get my bug spray while you're doing that. Those little guys were just lying in wait for a warm afternoon.
Hi, Susan. Are you just joining?
I am just getting back from an off-site meeting. I'm sorry, yes.
No, it's okay. Karen, do you want to? I
Yep,
think we had
well-
2 more people join. Did you want to just kind of catch everyone up?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. So we went through the components that you received in your kit and the items that you were supposed to have ready for the project. One of them was a container like this for the potting soil. One was a bucket or another container for the moss. So what I've asked everyone to do is take the moss that's in the packages, like this, remove that moss and put it in the bucket with water so that the moss can absorb the water. You're not going to put the Spanish moss in there. That's just for decorative purposes if you want to use it. So that's step one. So if you want to go ahead and get that started, the next step is to add water to the potting soil in your second container. And you're going to add potting soil, or you're going to add water to the potting soil until you get to the place where you can form a snowball size ball of potting soil that will hold together well enough that you can even toss it in the air and it won't crumble apart. But if you squeeze it, water won't pour out. So that's the goal. That's the sweet spot right there. We want to add enough water so that we can form a compact ball with the soil, and you just pack it like a snowball. And when you squish it, you'll hear it, a little squishy noise in there. And that way you know that it's the right consistency. It's got the right amount of moisture to create a kokedama. And what we're going to do is go ahead and make 3 of those balls. Once you've got the moisture content right, it's better just to make the 3 balls right then. Did anybody coming in late have any questions, or does anyone else have any questions? All right, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to make those 3 balls. Let me know if you need more time. Has anybody got those 3 balls made already?
I do.
Yes, yes, yes. Does anybody need more time to make them? Okay, I think we can move on. Rachel, is that correct, do you think? Can I move on?
Yeah. But
Okay.
also just to let everyone know, we're recording this. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, we are recording this. So
No,
if you do need,
I'm okay.
okay. If
I-
you do
Somebody have a
need to,
question?
huh?
I think somebody had a question.
Did someone have a question?
Okay.
Okay,
So
yeah, so
we're gonna
we are
start with
recording this.
We're going to start with the first plant, and you're going to just gently squeeze the sides of it to release the plant. If you have roots coming out the bottom, you may want to pull those off or snip those off. And this is what, you might actually get several plants out of one pot. But what we're going to do is use our thumb and just very gently, I'm going to come a little closer, very gently tease the soil out from between those roots. You don't want to hear any tearing. You don't want to tear the roots. You just want to tickle the soil and the roots so that we get as much soil out of that root ball as possible. And be very gentle, be very patient. Just tickle the soil out so we have as much of the roots exposed as possible. Without tearing any of those roots. So here's my root ball. And now I'm going to gently place that plant to one side and take one of my soil balls, and like an egg, I'm going to crack it open.
Hmm.
So I have 2 half circles, and it's still staying pretty much together. Then I'm going to gently place. Did somebody have a question?
Yes, the balls are just soil?
The balls are a mixture of potting soil and peat moss. And I think there's vermiculite in there too.
So this,
No, that is just the moss. So that should be soaking right now.
okay,
The potting soil came in a bag like this.
okay, I got that.
Yeah.
And you dump that potting soil into one of the containers.
All right, I will.
And then add water until you get it to the right consistency.
And then the moss, Karen.
And then the moss goes in another container with water. So what I'm doing now is I've laid the roots across the circle with the crown of the plant sticking out the top, and I'm going to just close that ball back up. And kind of gently, because we don't want to compress the roots too much, but gently kind of like you're making a pie and you've got the crust cracking. You're going to just try to get those raw edges seamed closed. So now I have, ooh, little twig, little root. So now I have a ball of soil. I don't think I'm going to toss this up in the air because I think it's a little more fragile than it was before. But it's a ball of soil that is surrounding the roots of the plant, and the crown of the plant is just at the top of the ball.
What happens if your ball keeps falling apart?
Then you probably need more water. Then it's probably not enough water, or maybe not enough soil.
Okay.
This is probably, I don't know, the 30th Kokedama I've made. So I kind of know how to do it, but the first one I made, it's a learning curve, and you have to kind of, it's like pie dough. When you know a good pie dough consistency, you just know it. So you're just going to have to play with it a little bit until you get the right moisture content, the right amount of soil. This is cracking too, but I'm not going to worry too much about it because I know that it's the right consistency. So let's get you to the place where everyone has one ball of soil that encompasses one root ball, one plant. So everyone, if you're working along with me, if you would rather do this on your own with the video and you can start and stop later, that's also fine. But if you're working along with me, let's get to the point where everyone has one plant encased, the roots encased in one ball of soil. And you can keep playing with it a little bit. The one thing, as gardeners, you know, is that roots don't like to be compressed too much. You don't want to really put a lot of pressure on it, but you can play with it until you get the outside just nice and uniform. At this point, I get rid of my gloves. You may not want to, but I prefer not to work the rest of it with the gloves. everyone, I don't want to rush anybody. Does anyone need more time to get to this point?
No, but I'm with Denise, I think it was, who said it's falling apart on me.
Yours is falling apart on you too?
Yeah. And it's
So
been
then
good
you
wet.
probably need to add more water, and you're just going to knead that soil until you could squeeze it into a ball, toss the ball in the air like this. I'm doing it. Toss the ball in the air and it doesn't fall apart. Now I'm outside, so if my ball falls apart, I don't care. You may be in your kitchen and you may decide that's not a good strategy.
Yeah, I'm not going to toss it. I'm in my
Okay.
living room.
Okay, well, that's not a good place to toss a ball of soil. I'm going to keep moving on. If you need to rewind the video and watch it again, that's fine. I'm going to take a piece of the green sheet moss that's been soaking in water, and I'm going to gently squeeze it. When I say gently, it's because this comes from the forest floor, and there are pine needles and little bits of prickly stuff in here, and I've stabbed myself before doing that. So just squeeze it gently so that it's still damp, but there's not water pouring out of it. And we're going to use as many pieces as we need to create a little mat about the size we'll need to cover the ball. And you don't have to be exact because we can always patch some extra pieces of moss in, just like a pie crust.
Do you have a question, Denise?
Yeah, I'm lost you totally. So,
You lost the video?
yeah, lost the video. Now I have pictures of Susan and Maria, but not of you. So,
So if you go to the upper right-hand corner and click on speaker view, you may be on gallery view and you want to be on speaker view.
What does it look like?
I can see you because you're speaking. Up at
Yes.
the top in the right-hand corner on my iMac, there's a little box, little 3 across by 3 down boxes,
Yeah.
little tiny squares. And if you put your mouse over it, it'll say gallery view. If you
Yeah.
click it, it'll say speaker view.
Okay, there's everybody.
So you're
Okay,
probably
so-
on gallery view.
now I see Rachel,
Yeah.
I see.
That,
Judy.
and I
are
now
you, Denise,
see-
are you seeing people come up as they speak?
but I don't see our.
Karen, can you speak?
Me? You don't see me when I speak? You don't see me?
Now I do. Now I see you. Now I
Okay, so I just have to keep talking and not stop talking, and that way I'll be the speaker in the speaker view all the time. If I stop talking and somebody else says something, they become the speaker and the view goes to them. So I will try to just never stop talking. If somebody's phone rings, if a dog barks, that may make the speaker view go to that other person. So if you are able, if your hands are not covered with dirt, you may want to put yourself on mute, and then you can't be the speaker. Only I can be the speaker. If your hands are messy, don't worry about it. This is all requiring so much patience from so many of us, and we really appreciate that you're willing to try this out and try to work through this. So are we, and it's a learning curve for all of us. So hopefully you'll get something out of it. The thing I've done, can you see me now in my speaker view now?
Yes.
Okay, so I've wrung out my moss and I have laid it flat, the brown side up. I just want to let you know that this is real moss, but it's dried preserved moss, so it's not live moss. I have made kokedama with live moss that I've gathered from my yard, and they're quite beautiful. The moss continues to grow. The problem is the plants we're putting in these kokedama need fertilizer because they're in a very small amount of soil. They're indoor plants. And the problem with using live moss is that moss does not want fertilizer. And so fertilizing the plant will kill the moss. So we're using preserved moss. It looks live and it has a green paint kind of dye on the outside. And so it will look lovely, but it's not growing moss. It's not live moss. We take the ball of soil and put it right in the middle. And then we're going to, like wrapping a round present, we're going to lift the moss up. And just, this is the part where you have to be patient and not get frustrated and just keep moving and tearing off the moss until you've got it wrapped around and there is no soil. And it takes about 4 hands. So if you don't have 4 hands, you have to just stay with it. You've got it. Live moss, you would want to be really careful about not overlapping the moss because it would kill the moss underneath. But this is served, if it overlaps a little, fine. Since it's damp, it's a little more pliable and you can actually kind of form it into.
Hey, Karen, I think, oh, is she gone?
Yeah, she's gone again.
Oh,
Rose,
Karen, I think you were having a bit of an internet problem.
I am?
Okay, now you're better, but you were freezing there for a second.
yeah.
Am I okay now?
Do not do the deposits.
Yeah, I think you're good. Yeah, you're much more smooth.
So I don't know where I ended, but so this, I've just wrapped the moss around it and I'm just kind of holding it on. It's a game that requires 4 or 5 pairs of hands to do, but the moss is pretty pliable now that it's damp. And so I'm just kind of molding it into shape. That's not going to stay there, of course. We're gonna secure it with twine. But once you've got the moss kind of in position, we move from there. There aren't any gaps. I can't see any soil. So this is good. We're ready to move on. Any leftover moss you have, just drop it back in the bucket and you can use that on your next one. Okay, so how are we going to keep moss from falling off the root ball, kokedama ball? You have with you in your kit 2 types of twine. One is a dark green twine and one is fishing line. If you're going to use the twine, much easier to use than the fishing line. The fishing line is slippery and I can't see it without reading glasses. If you are going to use the twine to do it, know that the twine is a natural material and rots. Eventually, your kodama will kind of fall apart. So you'll have to twine it at some point. And that's just part of the process. If you want to use the fishing line, I suggest that you do the first one with the twine, just to get the hang of it, and then do your second, third, and third ones with the fishing line. I brought my own twine because it's easier than unwinding that. So I'm going to probably about, I don't know, maybe 2 yards. That's going to be more than enough. And gently turn this guy on its side. Wrapping the twine around it. Be very careful that the twine does not cross over any of the crown of the plant. So it's just to the right or just to the left of the crown of the plant. And I'm going to bring that around the bottom, lay it on its side, and tie the knot on the bottom. I like the knot on the bottom. You're going to tie it pretty tightly. I like the knot on the bottom because I like it looking, not seeing the knot on the top. Now some of it's going to fall off a little bit. That's okay. That's all right. We just keep replacing it, keep tucking in those loose ends. And I'm leaving a little bit of a 6 inches so that when I come back around, I can knot it. And now I'm going to use the long end and wrap around. Again, being very careful not to cross over the crown of the plant, because if you catch a leaf in there, or if you catch one of the little stems coming out of your plant, it will kill it. The twine, the pressure of the twine will cut off the circulation to that particular leaf. So I'm just going to keep wrapping around and going around whichever. Some Kokedama artists are incredible. They use sort of a macrame process to create an intricate braided design of the twine. We are just wrapping it around so the moss doesn't fall off. And I'm pulling it pretty taut. I don't want it to be loose. As this dries, it's going to shrink a little bit. So I want to be sure that when it does, we don't lose any of this, the security of the twine. And what you want to be sure of is that there's no big chunk of moss that's still hanging loose. When you've got it pretty well tied up, I go back down to the bottom and tie off that last bit and cut the twine with about a 1/2 inch end. And at the bottom, it's knotted there. So then the knot isn't visible. And all of the big pieces of moss have been caught in the twine, and there's nothing that's going to fall off. If there is, if tomorrow I come out and there's a flat hanging off like a toupee, then I can just take another bit of twine and start again and make it secure. And there I have my first Kokedama ball. Now the Spanish moss is just for decorative purposes, but some people like the concept, since this is a ball of roots and these kind of look like roots, it's kind of interesting to, if you tuck them in underneath the twine, to have them dangling a little bit, especially if you're going to have this hanging, because it does resemble the roots growing out. And actually, if you're patient, the roots will end up growing out like they would out of a potted plant. I had one Kokedama that started off about, it was an arrowhead plant, and it was about this big when I started. And when I finished, the ball was about this big, and the plant was probably this big. And then I decided I wasn't going to keep it as a Kokedama anymore. All right, are there any questions on the process so far? Okay, there are a couple of ways to
I have to call you back.
continue, and you can continue and make the other two with me here, and I can answer any questions as you go. I do want to, the other
I think you're
option is if
freezing
you
again,
would rather
Karen.
do this on your own time and stop and start.
Sorry.
I don't know, I have 100%, so I don't know. You can see me now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want me, I can answer any questions. And you can continue to work on your next two. If you want to take the video and do this on your own time, that's also fine. I do want to show you before you make that decision how to go about watering these. Since they're sitting, usually one of the fun parts about Kokedama is that finding the serving platters or the pieces that you use to display them, and it's really fun because you can just sit them on a candle plate, or I thought this is a little kitchen, something from the kitchen, and I thought it made it look like a cupcake.
Sorry.
Am I okay, Rachel? Rachel?
I'm good. Sorry, there was a
Am
customer.
I okay? I'm not breaking out?
No, you're fine.
Okay, thanks. This is a candy dish kind of, and I'm just,
The cereal bowl.
a cereal bowl would be great. Little plates,
Yeah.
and you can set them on angles. You can put rocks around them.
Oh, cute.
I found this, I love this one. I found this little metal soap dish
Oh,
of a
cute.
pair of hands.
Oh, that's cute.
That's
Isn't that
adorable.
adorable? I love that. So one of the fun things is finding out how to display it. I've also seen a really beautiful one sitting, a tiny one sitting in a teacup. That was really precious. But how to water these, I usually use a big tub and water all of my air plants and my Kokedama at the same time. What you're going to do is mix up your watering can with plant food, and however much plant food you need for your size of watering can, you're going to add that amount of plant food to it, stir it up.
Could you just go over one more time how we have this twine bowl?
How what?
Who is there? Is there someone's? There's a man talking.
There's a noise behind.
Good.
I mean,
Someone who
if
has a-
they can talk, I'm just gonna put you on mute.
So what would, ask me your question again?
And Maria's listing is some garden. So I'm going to move to a different location.
Can I put? Yeah, we still hear him talking.
He's leaving.
Okay. Okay.
Kick husbands out.
Yes.
So who had a question for me?
I think she was asking about the twine, maybe? Because I'd like to ask the little review of how to start that and tie at the bottom. I kind of maybe missed that part.
Okay, so let me go through that one more time, because it is a little complicated. So I took about, I'll do another one. I took about 2 yards of twine, which is more than enough. And I took the ball with the moss and laid it down. It's going to lay down on its side like this. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that there is the short end and then the long end. And I tie the knot on the bottom. And it's a double knot. And I'm being very careful that the twine does not cross, that it doesn't cross the crown. It goes to one side or the other. So
Okay.
this is on, it doesn't cross the crown of the plant. And then on the bottom, I tie a double knot and I leave about 6 inches.
Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take that long one and I wrap it around. Again, being very careful not to cross over the crown of the plant. So I wrap it around and around, changing directions all the time until all the moss is secure.
Okay.
And
Makes
then
a
I
lot of
come
sense.
back to that first, that length that I left on the bottom, and I double knot it again. And once I've got it double knotted, I'm going to cut those cords. Kind of hard to know if I'm doing this so you can see it or if I can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Did that answer all your questions?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mine's wrapped up, not like that, but it's all tied up.
Well, when you do your 30-second Kokedama,
Right.
it'll look just like that.
Okay. That looks good.
Okay, so let me go back to watering. When you've got your Kokedama displayed on a tray or plate or whatever. Rachel, tell me if I freeze again. It says
You're
I have
fine. You're fine
all
now. And
Okay.
I also made it so you're actually a spotlight video. So anytime someone else speaks, you don't go away.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to add the liquid plant food as much as I need, teaspoon or whatever size pot, watering can I'm using. Mix it up just like I'm watering my regular houseplants. And then this is just a seed tray that I've got. You can use any kind of shallow dish. And then you take your Kokedama and just set it right inside there and let it soak it up from the bottom. And I'll leave it there for about a half an hour. If I forget, it might sit there for 2 hours. The best way to test your Kokedama, the best way to know when it needs to be watered, because that's the biggest question. How do you know when it needs to be watered? It depends on the plant, obviously. If you're putting succulents in, you're going to let it dry out. And the best way to test it is to feel it when it's heavy, when it's full of water, when you've let it sit for half an hour, and feel the weight of it. And then if it's sitting on your kitchen windowsill or whatever, every few days, just lift it up. And you'll be able to tell by the weight of it when it needs water. So if it gets to the point where you can tell that the plant is desperate for water, feel that weight and you know that you don't want to let it get that dry again. So different plants have different requirements. All of you are gardeners and you know how to research that. If you have any questions about a particular plant that you've received, you're welcome to call Good Earth and ask specifically about that plant. So I just let it sit there for a while and soak up the water, and then let it drip off a little bit, put it back on the display tray or whatever I'm using, and it's done.
About how long approximately do they stay as a Kokedama, or do they outgrow it, or?
They'll outgrow it just like a house plant will outgrow a pot.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple of things you can do. I had a plant for quite a while that I kept kind of trimmed small. So when the roots would grow out, I would clip the roots off, and I would try to keep it unnaturally small. You can do that. You can, you know, when the plant gets bigger, you can make a new ball for it. If you like the small size of it, which I find really appealing, then you may just want to start again and put this in a pot somewhere else in your house. Some of these are not going to stay small forever. So you can try to prune them and prune the roots to keep it small, or you can keep having fun making more Kokedama that are tiny. You can also choose little miniature plants, the terrarium plants.
Well, that's darling. Yeah. All right.
So I'm happy to answer questions while you work on the additional Kokedama. I know we've included enough moss and soil and plants for 3 Kokedama, plus we stuck in 1 extra plant. I think with the moss, the 2 packages of moss, you can get all 4 of them. I think you can make 4 of them.
Yeah, I have a lot left in here.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I have a good quantity still in the water.
Yep, so at least you can make 3 Kokedama, maybe 4.
Ooh. Okay.
I missed the video in the beginning. You say you could go back and watch the video?
No, we're recording this whole thing,
Okay.
and Rachel will edit it. So if I have said anything really ridiculous, she'll edit that out, and then she'll send you the link so that you can watch this over as many times as you want.
Oh, that's great.
And you can pause it and, you know.
Yeah, to give you an idea, when it will probably be tomorrow, since the store is closing soon. So yeah, so it won't be until tomorrow, but I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Means that we can share it with people that didn't make it.
if you want
Yeah.
to.
Okay.
So let's just wait a few minutes while you're working, and if there are any questions that come up. The reason we started with the twine instead of the fishing line is obviously because it's so much easier to work with than the fishing line.
Oh, yeah.
But the fishing line, I think, is quite stunning because it's not visible. It looks like the moss is just holding on by itself. And so it's really fun to have that effect, especially if you hang it. And if you hang like in 3 of them together, it looks like floating moss balls, and you don't see the fishing line. You will see the twine. The twine kind of, the green one especially, kind of blends in, but it's definitely more visible. And again, the twine will rot. So you're going to have to replace the twine or re-Kokedama it, or move it to a plant, a pot at some point.
Can you do the fishing line over the twine?
No, you can do it. There's no need to. The only reason you would use the fishing line is if you didn't want to see the twine. You didn't want it to be visible. If you want, I'll show you the difference. This has the twine.
Mm-hmm.
This has the fishing line.
Oh. Mhm.
It looks just like a ball of moss.
Uh-huh.
You can't see the fishing line at all. It disappears in the moss.
Oh.
So it looks like it's just a ball of moss. It doesn't look like there's anything holding it together.
Oh,
So if you want this aesthetically, it's worth it to fight with the fishing line to get that.
Does the moss fluff out as it dries? Yours looks fluffy.
No, the moss is, oh, this is a little fluffier. Yeah, it does fluff. I see what you mean, fluff out. I thought you meant fall off. It is a little, it does fluff out. It's also a different piece of moss. It may be the same kind of moss, but different species of moss are a little bit different in their fluffiness. But as it dries, it could get a little fluffier. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to sign out. Thank you very much. It's wonderful.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Dee.
I think I didn't do it. I watch it. I can do it. That's it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
I'll just stay on for a little while until everybody decides they want to leave in case any other questions come up while you're working.
Well,
I'm just going to